We want to welcome Hector Gomez, Penn-Griffin School of the Arts Teacher of the Year twice over. In both his role as a high school Spanish teacher and his community engagement, Mr. Gomez comes face to face with the impact of poverty on our youth and their education. Mr. Gomez, thank you for joining us today.
Gracias. And I'm going to start sharing my screen so I can go ahead, because 15 minutes is not enough time, honestly, to share all the things I want to share about education and my experience. So, hola, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Héctor Ancizar Gómez-Argote. And for those of you who don't speak Spanish, don't worry, that's all the Spanish you're going to hear from me today. I have been working at Penn-Griffin School for the Arts for 15 years now. And yeah, I am a native of Colombia, South America, no, South Carolina. The person you have in front of you right now is a person who has been in school with hunger. The person who's going to be talking to you today has gone to school with just a cup of coffee in his belly, or maybe a piece of bread, or sometimes the person who have gone to, his house, not knowing what's going to be on the table next morning. So I'm not just speaking as a teacher, but someone who has experienced a lot of the things that we are talking about today. And even though I could be sharing a lot of data, let me start my timer. I forgot the timer. So I could be sharing a lot of data with you all about what's going on in the schools right now, but I think stories talk also. So I'm going to be sharing with you today 2 different stories that I have seen for the past 2 years since COVID started. The first one is going to be Pablo. And the names and also maybe the gender of the students that I'm going to share may have changed. And I want to base this quote on this from Lama Owens and his book, Love and Rage, The Path of Liberation Through Anger, when he said, the body tells the truth, regardless of if we speak its language or not. So this is Pablo. Penn-Griffin School for the Arts, let me put you a little bit in context. It's a middle and high school. So we kind of like see students going from 6 through 12. So Pablo has been one of our students since 6th grade. When COVID hit, Pablo was a 9th grader. He was one of our top students. All his grades were A's and B's. He was always in school. He was great. When COVID hit, Pablo's grades started to go down. Then his attendance also to the virtual settings started to diminish. So we saw Pablo less and less in class, and all his grades were down. We talked to Pablo. I called his family, and they were like, yes, we're going to do our best. He's going to get it. We're going to do it. Pablo kept failing. Pablo kept missing classes. And we as teachers, we didn't know what to do. During this time, and I'm also, for those of you who may have not read yet my little presentation, I'm also part of the board of FaithAction International House in Greensboro. So at that time, at FaithAction, we started receiving a lot of calls for our food pantry. Lots of families started asking for food. And it got to the point that FaithAction thought like, hey, we need someone to take care of this because it's too much. And that's when I raised my hand and I said, I'll do it. So I would divide my time from teaching and also delivering food boxes to families in need. And there would be days where I would be delivering 1, 2, 4, 5 boxes, but I will not forget one day when I delivered in my little Toyota Camry, 16 different boxes of food to 16 different families all around Greensboro, High Point. I think I even got to Archdale that day. With this program that we had in place, I was in charge of taking food to the door of these families, drop the box as close as possible to their entrance, call them, from the road whenever I was parked, and tell them, hey, this is Hector from FaithAction, and if you hear a bell, it's because I'm at school. This is Hector from FaithAction. I'm here to give you your box of food. And I would wait for the family to open their door, pick up the food, and then just take it in. Because most of the neighborhoods that I visited were not, the best ones. So sometimes we were afraid that if we just dropped the box, some other family would take it. One day, to my surprise, I called this family. I told them, hey, this is Hector. This is your food. Come and pick it. And what was my surprise when the person that opened the door was Pablo. it was a surprise. But at that moment, I'm sorry, a lot of things clicked in my head. There was Pablo opening the door to pick up some food. At that moment, I understood that Pablo was failing possibly because his family did not have any food on his table. At that moment, I understood that Pablo may not have been attending classes because he may not have the energy, or I don't know, something was going on with him and he couldn't do it. And me as a teacher, just at that moment, understood that this was just one of my students. And again, I've been delivering, but I started delivering boxes since late April till I think beginning of October when we decided to open the doors again. Pablo's face when he saw me parked in front of his house was a surprise too. Then he looked at the box and I could see how his face kind of like light up because yeah, there was food. They were gonna have food for a few days. And then his face changed to like shame, even though there's nothing to be ashamed of, but he was like, there was a thank you, shame, surprised face for both of us. I waved at Pablo. I told him, I'm here for you if you need me. And yeah, at that point, I understood that Pablo's body was telling us something and we were not reading it. And that brought me back to also my teenage years when I also was Pablo, when I was not able to do my homework or complete stuff because there was no food in my house. So what I want to do today is to share the stories of just 2 students, but I know these are many of our students here in High Point and Greensboro. The second story that I want to share is Edison. And I am going to base this story on a quote by Maya Angelou, where there says, there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Edison is one of my students. He sits in the back corner of my classroom once we opened from COVID. He sits in the back, he does his work, he barely talks, he answers questions if you ask him. And he does what he can. He's not the best, honestly, when it comes to grades, because we teachers kind of like see grades and all the stuff. So he's not the top of my class, but he's not the lowest either. He just does some work. So one day I was walking down to the office in my school and I saw Edison at this time. He was walking down the hallway, but he was limping. Something was going on with his feet. So I was like, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? And he was like, yeah, Mr. Gomez, I'm fine. Can I just go into your room and like fix my shoe? So, yeah, one of his shoes was all ripped and yeah, it broke. That's why the picture on this slide. So I told him, sure, come in. He walked into my classroom. He took a stapler and he started stapling his shoe. One of his shoes broke. He was stapling it. By the way he was doing it, I saw that this was not the first time that Edison was stapling one of his shoes. He had some experience. So at that moment I thought, I have seen this student with me for months and I have not talked to him once about how he's doing, how he's feeling. I don't know his agony. I just know that he's here doing his best. And me as a teacher sometimes, or we as teachers, and I'm gonna talk for all of us as teachers, sometimes we do not listen to our students, so we don't see their agony. We don't read their bodies. Yeah, Edison was stapling his shoe and I was thinking maybe this family decides to spend their money in food and they don't have any left to buy this little Edison, I'll say he's a 15-year-old now, no shoes, maybe no clothes. So what can we do for them? Well, the next morning I got Edison some new shoes and he was walking around happy with them. So these are just 2 stories that I want to share with you. Again, these are the stories that repeat a lot and I only have like 7 more minutes. So my goal today also, apart from telling you these stories of things that are happening in Guilford County Schools, and I guess all through the nation, is that we need to listen to their stories. We need to come and talk to them. And that's when I invite you all as a teacher and as community members to think a little bit on how can you help the schools? How can you help these students? How can you help us all? So I had kind of like adopted these 4 stages from a reading that I had few months ago by Enid Lee, where she talks about multiculturalism in education. And she's talking a little bit about these 4 stages when it comes to community engagement. And I would invite you all to, if you're not, even though I know most of us are doing it right now, I would invite you to kind of like adopt them and take them into consideration in each of your organizations. So Enid Lee has planted 4 different stages. The first one is like the surface stage. And she's inviting us to go through all the stages and be the change we need. So she told us to go through the surface stage where we make posters, we do the food drives, we do all these activities, and we bring community together to support others. But the thing with this type of stage is that it's just one event, one day, one afternoon, one thing. So she's asking us to please be sure that you go also to the transitional stage. In the transitional stage, she's inviting us to not just do one day event, but please make this event something that lasts weeks. Start writing units, start writing programs, start writing things. So we go from just the surface to the transitional stage where things start writing, building up. And then she's inviting us to the structural stage where in the structural stage, since we have already broke down the surface and the transitional, she says that the questions for the group of people who's working together start changing. So we go from the what can I do to why do I want to do it? What can I do to who is going to do it? How can we do it? So a little bit of the structural stage of all this community support that we want change. And then she's telling us on her reading that if we're able to do some of this, we're going to start seeing the social change and also the social change stage. And in this one, she's inviting us to bring everything off the office, bring these strategies off the churches, bring everything off where we are and bring into the community, go to the community. And she's also inviting us to listen to students, not only adults, listen to everyone, listen to their stories. And she's also inviting us to use knowledge to empower people and change their lives. So this is a little bit of what the stages, and again, I'm inviting you to search her and read about multiculturalism and all this stuff. And for the record, I know my time is almost up, but those 2 students that I shared, I know I chose Latino names, but one was an African-American and the other one was a Latinx student. And now I want to bring your minds to all the schools and the teachers. Think about Montlieu, Kirkman Park, Penn-Griffin, Central, Andrews, I don't know, all the schools or wherever your kids go or the kids that you know. And I want you to think about this school and the teacher by itself. Like, how can the community help educators and students? And again, I'm basing this on Enid Lee, and I'm inviting you all to observe. But when you observe with intentionality, with a purpose. My invitation is if you come to, and I mean, like, even though the doors of the schools are closed, but I'm inviting you to go and talk to teachers and observe them. Don't come to school or don't come to a teacher, it's my recommendation, and expect us to tell you what's going on. Come with the questions and ask us the questions, okay? Bring a purpose every time you talk to a teacher, every time you talk to a student, bring the questions and talk to us. Sometimes we may not know the answers, but we are going to build them together. So if you come next time to visit a school, please be sure you bring an invitation, come with a purpose. Do not expect the teachers or the principal to tell you what's going on, because sometimes there are so many things that we kind of like get lost in transition. So just come with a purpose. The other thing is like, and I highlighted the verb have, we teachers need to have the time and encouragement to do some observation and reading. When COVID hit, we were told literally on Friday, pack whatever you need because next week you're going to start virtual. And that's what happened. And we have not stopped. We teachers have not had a chance, we have not had a time to actually sit and read what's going on and observe what's going on. And my initiative with this and my invitation with this, and it's something that had come to my mind, is like, maybe we can have something that that's give a teacher an hour, give a teacher 2 hours. And I'm inviting you all to volunteer, come to school one day, talk to the principal and tell him, hey, Mr. Gomez, in my case, I'm here and I want to give 2 hours to a teacher. Go and stop for that teacher for 2 hours and give the teacher some time to go have a coffee. Give the teacher some time to stay at school and read what's going on, the atmosphere. Give that teacher some time to sit with a counselor and talk of what's going on. Because when we get to school, we don't stop. And we have not had the time to read, to observe, the actual environment of schools and what's going on. So please think about that. Give us 2 hours, choose a teacher, choose a principal, and tell him, I'm giving you 2 hours of time. Go and do something for you. And the last part I want to invite you all is look for the voice of the people. Stories tell, stories are strong. So come to schools, look for the people, talk to them, and give them also, and invite them all. And I'm appreciating that you are inviting us all to this one, but invite the people who's receiving all this help, invite the people who's in all this need, and listen to their stories, listen to their needs. Okay, and I think I'm with my time, so I'm gonna recommend you 2 readings in the 40 seconds that I have. These are 2 books that I read this past summer, and I want to invite you to kind of like Google them and find them in your, and maybe in your library. The first one is We Want to Do More Than Survive by Bettina Love. What I liked about that book is that, let me stop my timer for a minute. Bettina Love grew up in the United States. I grew up in Colombia. And when I was reading her book, my story matched her story a lot. And I was like, if a Colombian kid lived and went through all this stuff, and we are here and we're succeeding, or we are kind of like trying or doing our best, I would like for more people to understand our stories and to read. So I'm inviting you to read that book. And also the last one that I want to invite you all to do to read is What Kind of Citizen? And again, this is about education. What I like about that book is that the author is giving us actually some tools and strategies to work with the community. It's like very specific. So I want to stop there. And if any of you want to reach out to me, remember I'm Héctor Gómez or Héctor Ancizar Gómez-Argote. And yeah, there's my email and my phone number. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector. Thank you so much for bringing your whole self to this work, because it is deep work, and I'm so thankful that people like you are on the front lines. And I love in the chat, you're getting a lot of love in the chat, but one of them's one of my favorite people, who is one of your former students, Natalie Lucas, who went to HPU, is now serving as a Vista on Washington Street with Jackie. And you just think these lives that you are impacting, the way that they get shaped and formed to go on to have such big impacts in our community. So thank you for what you are doing every day and for the voice that you brought to us today. It's a powerful word.